We're back. James and Ben here for Odds Checker US, taking a look at Saturday's UFC Vegas 57 event, which goes down at the Apex in Las Vegas. And Ben, let's jump right into it right now. Pretty solid fight night card. Loving this main event. We'll talk about that in a sec, but we're going to start first on the main card in the middleweight division. We've got Chris Curtis taking on Rodolfo Vieira. And right now the odds makers have Chris Curtis a slight favorite at -155. The comeback on Vieira +130. Which way are you leaning on this one?
How about Chris Curtis, huh? I mean, he's coming off two impressive wins. He was an underdog against Hawes. He got that first round knockout. He was a big underdog, +275 against Brendan Allen. He KO'd him too. So, I mean, two very impressive wins. But honestly, I am taking a sell high spot on him. I'm going to take Vieira because I think he can get this done possibly by sub. You know, he's a larger frame. He's that 4-inch reach advantage. Chris Curtis, he's always live for that knockout, but I think Vieira, he's going to be looking for that takedown the whole fight. I think he can get it. He's basically lives for that takedown. He's a predominant grappler on the feet. Curtis does have that large edge, but I do think that this is a fight that Vieira can at least find one takedown. And once he does, I think he can kind of cruise that submission win. So I do like him as an underdog here. Chris Curtis, I think this line is a little bit inflated off his 2 knockout wins, which were very impressive, but I do like the underdog spot here.
This is a tough one for me. I'm going the other way. I do like Chris Curtis here. It really comes down to Vieira and just not trusting him. If you remember the Anthony Hernandez fight a few fights ago, big favorite, supposed to go out there and submit Hernandez. Hernandez submitted him. I think the verdict's still out on how good Vieira is at this point, and he's facing one of the most experienced fighters in that weight class. And Chris Curtis, 28-8 record compared to just 9 pro fights. Now I know Vieira's got a lot of submission experience in the grappling scene, but still, Curtis is seeing something that he's seen before. You know, he's faced high-level grapplers as well. So I'm going the other way. I'm going to go Chris Curtis by knockout. I think that the streak continues. I think he gets a second round knockout here. But no bet for me. I'm just going to stay away from this one because it's kind of a weird fight where, you know, Curtis has had these 2 good wins. Is he really that good? And then Vieira, I don't trust him. So that's really what comes down for me. So disagreeing on that first fight. Okay. Oh, sorry,
I will say though, on Curtis, the thing I do like about him in this fight is that I do think middleweight is kind of his home because he was at welterweight for a while. Where he was fighting kind of on the regional scenes and such. But since going to middleweight, he hasn't lost to middleweight. So I will say it seems like this could be a good spot for him. So yeah, I'm really back and forth on that one too. But yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with the weight cut as well. Okay, next fight we're going to look at here is Umar Nurmagomedov taking on Nate Maness. And right now the odds makers have Umar Nurmagomedov at -800. The comeback on Nate Maness +550. Is there a play here? What are your thoughts on this fight?
To be honest, I'm not sure because I mean, let's be honest. This line is highly inflated by the fact that this is a Nurmagomedov. I mean, if he is not Khabib's cousin, does he really have this high of a price tag? Like, yes,
No.
he is very impressive. He is undefeated, but I don't think that. I think the public is skewing this line quite a bit, and I think he is a very popular parlay piece just because of his line and who he is, Khabib's cousin. So I think this line is too inflated. I don't necessarily think that means I want to bet Nate Maness, but he is really, you know, he's skilled in his own right. You know, he's I don't know. This fight's really hard to call. I don't want to take Armand Magomedov with that price, but he is dominant. He should probably win the fight. I just don't think he's worth the price. I don't really have much more to say than that, really. It's just as simple as that. So probably a no bet for me.
Well, I was going to say it's a combination of things. It's the Nurmagomedov name, and I think the style matchup does favor Nurmagomedov. Now, Nate Maness' last fight, I think people might have forgot how that actually went. Of course, Maness getting the knockout win against Tony Gravely, but it was a fight where I thought he was losing, and so he kind of came back and got the win there. He's been on a bit of a layoff. I know he's had some injuries, had a chance to speak to Nate before this fight. I think Nurmagomedov wins, but +550 for a guy who's 14-1 and just the one loss was not even, it was a while ago. I don't know. I might throw. To me, it's a dog or pass situation. Like I think you could. I think there is some value here at +550, just because you never know with Maness. He's got that knockout power. I could definitely see him catching Nurmagomedov. I think if you're going to play Nurmagomedov, I think decision is probably more likely. It's only a 3-round fight. Maybe you go that route. I know he's been finishing a lot of guys, but Nate Maness is no slouch, and there's a reason they put this matchup together. I think the winner is going to get a ranked spot here, but it's two really highly touted guys that aren't in the top 15. Not to mention Nate's got a height and reach advantage in this fight. He's 5'10" with a 72-inch reach compared to 5'8" with a 69-inch reach. So I'm going to throw a little bit on Nate Maness, but the pick's got to be Nurmagomedov. I think on paper he's better, but no way I'm laying -800 for a guy who really hasn't shown a ton in the UFC so far. So I'm going Nurmagomedov with the pick.
Maness has also been an underdog in all 3 of his UFC fights, and he's won all 3 of them. So I mean, Of course, he wasn't plus 550, but you know, he's been in the underdog spot before, expected to lose, and he's won every time so far in the UFC. So I mean, his KO prop is plus 1,000. His sub is plus 2,500. I might take a stab at one of those. So
plus 1,000 for the KO prop. Oh, I'm
yeah,
definitely
that's
playing
what I
that.
just found on Bovada. Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's
also
crazy line.
I gotta point out one last thing here, not to spend too much time in this fight here, but you're looking here, Brian Kelleher submission win, Sergey Morozov submission win, Brian Gonzalez submission win. Nate Maness has never been submitted. And last time I checked, he's actually got a pretty good ground game himself. Just look at that fight against Luke Sanders. So like I said, I think if Nurmagomedov does win, I think it more likely is a decision, but that plus 1,000 for a Nate Maness KO prop, I'm definitely taking that. That's crazy. Definitely. Okay, next fight, Thiago Moises, Christos Giagos. Right now, the odds makers have Thiago Moises at minus 240. Ooh, a little steep for my liking here. Christos Giagos plus 200. Who are you liking here?
Giagos, he's coming off that first round knockout loss to our main event fighter, Armand Saryukin. I don't know. He was plus 600 in that fight. He's 1-5 as an underdog so far. So he hasn't really shown up, you know, not like Maness has. He's not 3-0. He's 1-5 as an underdog, but he's 4-0 as a favorite. So I don't know. I expect Moises to win this fight. He's that black belt jiu-jitsu artist. He strikes well. They're both pretty well-rounded in my eyes, but I just think Moises is a little more well-rounded. Giagos tends to overextend a little bit in its striking exchanges, so he might get caught. I just think he's going to get damaged a little bit more by Moises. So I honestly see this being a decision win for Moises. That's plus 190 actually. And that might be a little bit of a way to knock down some of that juice, because I don't think he should be a minus 240 favorite in this spot. I think it should be a little closer to even, but I do like that decision prop just to take out that juice aspect of it. So I'd say Moises by decision, just based on he'll land more damage, maybe land a takedown or so, but they're pretty even. So
yeah, we're in agreement there. The line is too high here on Thiago Moises, especially after how he lost his last fight. He got finished in the very first round. I was just checking here right now. You look at it here. There have been a few submission losses in his career. Christos Giagos says so. I was just double checking that. Granted, two of those are Gilbert Burns and Charles Oliveira. So pretty good jiu-jitsu guys. Nothing wrong with that. I had a chance to speak to both guys before this fight. Just two quick tidbits. First one is Giagos' last camp was a disaster. So I don't know if you know, but he moved from California to Florida, ended up training at Sanford for his last camp. And who does he see the first day he walks in there? The last guy he defeated, Sean Soriano. So he just told me how things were really awkward and he didn't really get the type of camp he wanted. So Armand's also very good. So, the fact a lot of people put stock in that last loss where he just got dominated. There were a lot of circumstances that went into that. So I'm expecting a much better fight from him this time. And on the flip side, Moises had a really bad fight against Joel Alvarez. Alvarez missed weight in that fight, but I like the fact that Thiago's been working a lot with Grant Dawson, who's been a new addition to that gym. The ground game, you mentioned it there. I think that could be the factor because we have seen Thiago submitted a few times. And I mentioned, granted, against really good guys, but I go back to that fight against Michael Johnson with Thiago Moises, where he was clearly losing that first round, came out in the second and submitted Johnson. I could see a similar threat here against Thiago. So I might even throw the submission prop there. The decision is something I could see too, just because, again, I don't think Moises is the type of guy to dominate his opponent, at least not in this type of matchup here. So it's going to be Moises the pick. Not a chance I'm going to lay the minus 240. That is way too high for my liking, especially with guys that are, kind of similar records here, similar age. I mean, Thiago's a little bit younger, or sorry, Moises a little bit younger here. But yeah, the pick's going to be Thiago Moises, but I think submission could potentially happen here with what we've seen in his ground game. Okay, next fight we're going to look at here, Josh Parisian and Alan Badeau. Right now, the odds makers have this as dead even at minus 110. That's kind of how I see this fight. Which way are you leaning here, Ben?
I agree with you there. I think this is a complete coin flip. You could literally take a quarter, flip it, and you have the winner of the fight. Because, I mean, this one, it's just a low-level heavyweight fight. Badeau maybe a little bit better. I think he has kind of the edge on the feet. Parisian has the grappling advantage. And I do think this one will stay standing. So that's the only reason I'm going to say Allen here. Maybe a cardio edge too. I think he's fought maybe a little bit better competition, but both of them haven't really fought anyone super good. So I don't know. This is just a hard fight to look at and say this guy has a clear advantage in. I don't think either one of them has a clear advantage. So it's basically like the books put it, a coin flip. I'll take Allen, I guess. Probably a no bet though. It's just a super low level heavyweight fight. So it's hard to really have an angle or an edge here. So
Yeah, I'd avoid this fight if I were you from a betting perspective, just because both guys have been very underwhelming. Of course, Badeau pretty much known for being Cyril Gahn's main training partner, one of his main training partners, so he obviously gets that sort of notoriety. But Josh, if you look at here, has a lot more experience in the cage. He had a really long road to get to the UFC. If you remember, he was on Contender Series twice, and then he also had to fight on the Ultimate Fighter. So I think that experience has paid dividends. I feel like, and he's talked about this too in some of the interviews I've done with him, he feels like he hasn't really shown up in a lot of fights and that he's a lot more skilled in that regard. But that's the exact type of thing that I hear that it makes me not want to bet a fighter like that.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to take Parisian here because, again, I think this is a pretty even fight, and I think I give him a slight edge in experience. But even look at like age-wise, height-wise, reach-wise, they're all pretty similar. The only edge there is Josh has more experience. So for that, I'm just going to give him the slight edge. And I also know this is the last fight on his contract, so I think there might be some urgency here to really put out a good performance. So I'm going to take Josh Parisian, but no bet for me on this fight. I'm staying away. I wouldn't even say like there might be a finish here because I've seen both these guys go the distance. So
yeah, exactly.
I'm totally avoiding that. Okay, co-main event. Really, really exciting fight. This is one of those fights we're going to learn a lot about both guys. We've got Neil Magne taking on Shotcat Rackmonov, and check this out: Shotcat Rackmonov minus 400. The comeback on Neil Magne plus 300. Where are you going in this one?
I don't know. Magne is that big of an underdog. Almost wants me to make a play on him just because, I mean, he's fought everyone. He's fought the best of the best. But Shotcat, Rackmonov is a scary dude. The tape on him is insane. He's finished every single fight, and he's been very balanced in his finishes too, right? I mean, he has 8 knockouts and 7 subs, so it's not like these are all knockouts or something. He's showing he can take this fight anywhere and win anywhere. I think he is a very scary person that doesn't necessarily he's gaining popularity, but I don't think he's necessarily got the biggest name yet for a guy who's 15-0 and as scary as he is. Magne, like I said, he's fought the best of the best. It's hard to see him at this price and not take him, but the last time we saw odds like this on him was against Damian Maia, and what happened in that fight? He got subbed in the second round. He was plus 440 in that fight, so I think odds wise this is like kind of a similar situation against Grappler where he might get subbed again. But I don't know. I mean, Magne has shown he can be finished. He got knocked out by Ponzinibbio. He got submitted by RDA. He got knocked out again by Lorenz Larkin. So, I mean, he's shown that he can get cracked. And I think that's where we're going to see in this fight. Rackmonov, I'm seeing him inside the distance around minus 150, depending on where you look. I think minus 150 is on FanDuel. So I do like that play the best in this fight. But I do think it'd be worth kind of taking a stab at Magne just because of his just with his caliber and his resume. He's fought the best of the best. So I mean, I don't know, this fight's kind of a little bit hard for me. I think the price is a little bit too high, but that inside the distance is probably my favorite play on Rackmonov.
Yeah, you literally said what I was going to say. I think that is the play here. If you're going to do any sort of bet in this fight, you might be able to take Magne, as an underdog because he is bigger, way more experienced. I think I read something, or I was kind of actually did a full preview of this fight, and I realized that I think Neil had already had 7 UFC fights or something by the time Rackmonov had made his like amateur debut or pro debut. I can't remember, but like way more experience there, as you can see. I mean, I think people forget Neil Magny's been in the UFC since like 2013, so it's been a while. But with all that said, I think Shotcat's the real deal. Had a chance to speak to both guys before the fight. Shotcat was at Sanford MMA this camp, which I think is one of the best camps right now. Rafael Fiziev's there. He's fighting in a few weeks. I think he goes out there and finishes. I think that's the only play here is the Shotcat inside the distance. Again, really high jump in competition here. But we saw Magne even get cracked in his last fight against Max Griffin. If Shotcat, I think if he does crack him, he finishes the job. I don't think he's a guy like you see that goes the distance here. So I'm going Shotcat inside the distance. Could Neil Magne do this? Absolutely. We've been wrong before, but I think Magny's kind of that, and I mean this with all the respect in the world. I think he's kind of the gatekeeper in the division, and I think they're putting Shotcat in this position to say, hey, are you the next Khamzat Chimaev, or are you a guy that we've rushed a bit too soon? I think he passes the test and looks impressive. I'm going Shotcat. Inside the distance, we'll go second round. I think he gets it done. Yeah,
this is a big fight for him because I just want to say, I mean, it's the biggest test for him for sure. Yeah. This is the hardest guy he will have faced to date. So, I mean, yeah, he's 15-0 with those 15 finishes, but he has not faced someone like Neil Magne. So, we're really going to find out a lot about him in this fight, but I think he gets it done too.
Okay, main event, Armand Saryukin, Matteos Gamrot, and right now the odds makers have Saryukin is the favorite at minus 260, the comeback from Gamrot plus 210. Let me just say, I love this main event. This is what Fight Night card should be, which is showcasing the underrated fighters that are going to make some noise in the division. This is a perfect matchup. It's also a pair of guys who I know have had tough times getting opponents, so they're just like, hey, we'll put you guys together. What are your thoughts on this fight? Who do you think gets it done?
Yeah, I agree with what you said. Definitely that this is a great fight because you said a little bit underrated, and I think it's kind of the same thing. They're both dark horses at lightweight. They sit just outside the top 10. They don't have like big names necessarily yet. Saryukin at 11, Gamrot at 12. So I mean, this is a great fight, and I think it's another one of those fights on this card where I think the odds are a little bit too high on Saryukin, but I also think he's going to win it. They're both highly skilled grapplers. Gamrot, he should be probably 21-0, honestly. He had that split decision loss in his debut, which he probably won. A lot of people did think he win. Saryukin also dropped his UFC debut against Islam Makhachev. So, I mean, that's kind of a hard fight to give for him. And he took that fight when he was 23, I think, 23 or 22. Yeah. So, I mean, he was super young when he made that debut. So, of course, no one's going to expect him to win that fight. He's gone 5-0 since, and he's looked just unstoppable. So I do think this is a fight that he can edge it out on the feet. On the mat, they seem kind of pretty even to me, but I do think on the feet, Saryukin has that advantage. So I think this could be a fight where we see him either get that knockout or the sub. I don't think it's worth taking anything but a prop because I don't think he's minus 300 worthy. But if I had to guess, maybe buy sub plus 500 because that's a pretty good line in my eyes. But I don't think he's worth minus 300 because Gamrot is extremely impressive. And he should be, frankly, 21-0. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, really, really close fight. I think this is 50-50. I'm with you. I think the line's too high. If I would have capped this, I would have maybe gone Saryukin like a minus 150. I really do see it that close. But to me, the difference is a couple things. You talked about that Islam Makhachev fight. There was a short notice fight, and he went the distance with him. And I know Islam's gotten better since then, but that really showed that he's at that level. I mean, Islam Makhachev might be fighting for the title next, So that, even though he lost, I think in some ways that was a win for him. Gamrot, obviously great resume coming from KSW, which is one of those really great international promotions. Jan Blachowicz came from there. He was a former featherweight and lightweight champion in that promotion. So you're right. Absolutely skilled and talented. I think the play here actually is the under. I think you can get the under 4.5 at like almost close to plus money. I think it was like minus 105. I've seen on a couple of books. I think we will see a finish here, even though it is even though both guys are pretty tough to take out and very durable. I think that might be worth a stab here, but I'm going Armand just because of the youth. I think, he's getting better every fight. I did have a chance to speak to him before this fight. His entire camp was in Vegas. This card's in Vegas, so no traveling at all. From what I heard, just really customized his camp to what he wanted. He didn't go to one of these big gyms, so I know he got a lot of really good work in there. And I think, every time we see this guy out, he's getting better. That last fight against Joel Alvarez, kind of a similar fight to this one in the sense that it was two guys that I think the UFC wanted to see who the better prospect was. I referenced there Alvarez's big knockout win over Thiago Moises the fight before. Saryukin dominated him in that fight. And I think that really woke up the division being like, okay, this is a guy we got to watch out for. To me, he's been more impressive and he's younger. That's why I'm going with him here to get it done over Gamrot. I'm going to go late finish on this one, maybe like a TKO or potentially a submission like you mentioned too. I could see that happening as well, but I'm going Armand Saryukin to get it done.
Yeah, that line's interesting on him because I like that plus 500 because like you said, late, this is 5 rounds. So, there's a lot of time for two really dangerous fighters, and there's going to be a lot of grappling exchanges and scrambles. So he could probably find it for plus 500 there.
As we usually do before we wrap things up, are there any other plays on this card that you're looking at? One, I'll just quickly mention, I did end up picking him against him on my preview show on Monday, but I think Rulin Paiva as an underdog is a little bit intriguing just because he's younger. And I know he didn't look good he got finished in his last fight against Sean O'Malley, but I'm not that high on Sergey Morozov. I see this as kind of a closer fight. I think you see the odds right now have him still as the underdog here. So that might be worth the stab, but no play on the undercard for me. Is there anything you're liking here?
To be honest, not too much on the undercard really caught my eye. I found a few spots that I might play. Maybe Carlos Oberg. That one kind of interested me a little bit just because he's that slight underdog, and it's two contender series products. But besides for that, nothing really caught my eye too much on the undercard. But I do like a lot on the main card. So.
Absolutely. All right. So there he does. There we have it there. UFC Vegas 57 preview show in the books. For myself, for Ben, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys next week.